Imagine this. Every night at exactly 10 p.m., a young girl returns home soaking wet, terrified, even though she died days ago. Sounds creepy? Well, this thriller takes you into the terrifying world of a cold-blooded killer hiding in plain sight, and the people trying to survive around him. Let's break down this chilling and emotional mystery story. The movie begins with a girl named Won who's waiting outside school for her mom to pick her up, but her mom doesn't show up for some reason. So, Won decides to walk home alone. It's around 10 p.m. and it's raining heavily. Just then, a car pulls up in front of her, and without thinking much, she gets in. The man driving was her neighbor who lives in her apartment building. What happens next is completely shocking. When Won gets home, she's covered in mud and looks scared and shaken. But the strange thing is, her mom also seems terrified the moment she sees her. She even starts trembling. That's because her daughter is supposed to be dead, yet she keeps coming home every night at 10 p.m. Actually, that day, after school, their neighbor took Won to his house and murdered her. He stuffed her body in a bag and dumped it somewhere. In next scene, we see a man named Kim saw the bag on the news. He recognized it. It was sold at his shop. A man named Sejong had bought that exact bag just 10 days ago. Next, we see a guy named Yoon who works as a pizza delivery guy. Today, he's delivering pizza to the killer's house because this killer has a habit of eating pizza right before killing his victims. Yoon tells him that if he orders one more pizza, he'll get the fourth one for free. But the killer has zero interest in this offer and tells him to leave quickly. He then takes the pizza down to his basement where he has Won tied up. He feeds her half the pizza and eats the other half himself. Then we meet Suyeon, a girl who lives in the same apartment complex and looks exactly like Won. Her mom, Sohee, is the head of the building committee. Meanwhile, poor Won is begging the killer to let her go. She says she won't tell anyone if he lets her live. But the killer shows no mercy and brutally kills her. When Kim sees this murder on the news, he thinks about calling the police, but his wife stops him, saying they'll just get dragged into trouble. When Yoon reads the same news, he realizes the killer has been murdering someone every 10 days. That's when it clicks. He has a regular customer who orders pizza every 10 days, but he still doesn't connect the dots between the pizza and the murders. Meanwhile, Han, Won's mom, tells her husband that Won returns home every night at 10 p.m., and that's terrifying her. Her husband thinks she's being ridiculous and says, "How can you be afraid of your own daughter?" Maybe because Han never really saw her as her daughter. She wasn't Won's biological mother. But even so, she had always loved her like her own. Later, Sohee, Suyeon's mom, talks to the security guard Hwang and tells him that the apartment complex has been warned not to waste food, so she asks him to keep an eye out for anyone throwing food away. Then we meet Don Lee, another resident in the building who works as a loan shark. His uncle also borrowed money from him, and because he didn't pay it back, Don is now harassing him. Don hates his uncle because when his mother was sick and dying, the uncle didn't even come to visit. Meanwhile, the killer is busy cleaning up Won's blood. Just then, Don bangs on his door and shouts, "Why did you park in my spot? Move your car before I park you in the hospital." After that, Hwang is checking through the trash and finds a pizza box and a receipt. That's when he realizes whose trash it is. He brings the bag to the killer's house and tells him, "I know this is yours. Buy me a drink and I won't report it." But then Hwang opens the bag and finds Won's school uniform inside. Now he knows the truth, but before he can do anything, the killer kills him too. Han, who happens to be passing by, sees blood on the stairs and panics. But the killer had already broken a liquor bottle there to make it seem like the red liquid was just alcohol. That night at 10 p.m., Won returns home again. Through her vision, we see that the night she was murdered, the killer brought her back to the complex safely. But as she started walking toward her apartment, he called her back, handed her a box, pretended to unlock his door, and then dragged her inside. Poor Won was just 10 meters away from her home, but that didn't save her. Now that Hwang is missing, the second guard, Pio, keeps calling him, not knowing that Hwang is already dead. Yoon is still trying to figure out who the killer is. Then the killer places another pizza order, giving Yoon another chance to check out his home. But he doesn't see anything suspicious. Of course not, because the murders happen in the basement. After this, the killer cuts Hwang's body into pieces and returns to Kim's shop to buy another bag. Kim recognizes him as the man who bought the red bag earlier and gets nervous. Seeing Kim so shaken, the killer starts getting suspicious too. What if this guy knows something? Meanwhile, Pyo is also wondering why Hwang has suddenly disappeared. Now let me tell you, the man with the glasses who hangs around with Pyo, he's just a hallucination. Only Pyo can see him. We'll find out why later. Pyo calls the killer and says, "Your water bill is super high. Maybe there's a leak?" Right then, someone knocks at the killer's door, so he puts the phone down. It falls into a suitcase. The person at the door is Sohee. She says there's an upcoming apartment meeting and wants to talk. The killer says he doesn't care. He's moving out in a few days anyway. When Sohee sees the messy house, she comments, "What is this mess? And why are these lights so bright?" When she turns off the lights, the killer gets furious and almost kills her, but her phone rings. She tells the caller she's at apartment 102. Now the killer backs off. If she dies, everyone will know. The last place she visited was 102. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon is handing out flyers for the apartment meeting when she finds a pair of glasses outside Block 11. They belong to Hwang. As she walks away, Han sees her and, thinking she's her daughter, panics. Because Soo-yeon looks just like Won, Han brings her home. The killer sees Soo-yeon and starts trembling from fear. At home, Han spends time with Soo-yeon and tells her how much she loved her daughter. As they're leaving, Han notices the downstairs neighbor, the killer, giving Soo-yeon creepy stares. Soo-yeon later gives the glasses to Pyo and says she found them near Block 11. Pyo knows immediately they belong to Hwang. After that, Pyo visits apartment 102 to check the leak because the water bill was too high. At first, the killer doesn't let him in, but when Pyo says he'll come back later with a plumber, the killer has no choice. Inside, Pyo feels something's off. When he checks the basement bathroom, he finds some bloody hair and stains on the wall. He realizes what's going on and knows he's in danger. As the killer gets ready to attack him, Pyo quickly says, "No leak! Everything's fine!" and leaves. Ideally, Pyo should tell the police, but he doesn't, for a reason. Meanwhile, Don Lee returns home and finds the same guy parked in his spot again. This time, he teaches him a lesson, Don's way. Somewhere else, Han goes into Won's room. She misses her deeply. The room has all of Won's things, except Won herself. At the same time, the killer realizes his phone is locked inside the suitcase and he doesn't know the password. He goes to Kim and asks for it. Kim says he can't remember it clearly. The killer then uses Kim's phone to give Don a missed call. As he leaves, he asks Kim, "Do you like pizza?" You know what that means. That night, when Won returns home, Han gathers the courage to hug her. She apologizes for not picking her up from school that day. At school, Soo-yeon finishes her classes. The killer waits outside, ready to do the same thing he did to Won. But luckily, Soo-yeon's mom shows up to pick her up, so he gives up and grabs Kim instead, taking him home. He orders another pizza like always, but this time, Yoon notices blood on the money he receives. He starts snooping around the house. Just as the killer is about to catch him, Pyo shows up with a flashlight and distracts him. Yoon tells Pyo about the blood-stained money and says they should go to the police. Pyo brushes it off, saying the guy probably cut his hand. Yoon believes him and leaves. Later, Pyo's hallucination says, "You know that guy killed Hwang. Why don't you tell the police? Or are you scared they'll arrest you instead?" Turns out, the man Pyo sees is someone he killed 15 years ago. He regrets it deeply. There are still 5 months left before the statute of limitations runs out, so he can't go to the cops yet. That night, the killer calls Don Lee and challenges him to a fight. Don knocks him out with a single punch. The guy begs for mercy, and Don gives him one final warning. But this was all part of the killer's plan. He takes the stick. Don hit him with, now covered in Don's fingerprints, and turns it into a weapon. He puts it in the same bag that holds Huang's body parts. The next morning, Suyan is running late for school and forgets her phone. The killer is waiting for her outside. Han sees him staring and realizes something is very wrong. Pio sees him too and warns Suyan not to come home alone. Suyan says her mom always picks her up, but the killer follows her anyway. He sees Wan's face in her and gets spooked. Meanwhile, Pio decides to leave the building forever, feeling helpless. But his hallucination tells him, "You have to protect Suyan. She's like your daughter." Pio says she'll be fine. Her mom always picks her up. But the hallucination asks, what if her mom doesn't show up today? He's right. That's how Wan died. The killer knows Sohee usually picks up Suyan, so he calls her and says he wants to attend the building meeting after all, just to keep her busy. Meanwhile, Don is arrested. Kim has been missing for days, and the last call from Kim's phone was to Don. Don claims he was with his uncle for 10 days. The police bring the uncle in, and surprisingly, he supports Don's story. Then, police find the bag with Huang's body and the stick with Don's fingerprints. Don's in deep trouble. At the same time, Kim manages to break open the suitcase and free himself. He finds the phone inside and sends a help me message to the last dialed number, Yoon. When Yoon gets that message, his suspicion turns into certainty. He rushes to the killer's house. Meanwhile, Han notices it's raining again and feels uneasy. She decides to pick up Suyan from school. To her, Suyan feels like her own daughter. The killer is nearby, and it's good Han arrives. Sohee is stuck in a meeting. The killer gets furious seeing Han and decides to kill both of them. A massive storm knocks out power across the city. Don uses the blackout to escape the police station, disguised in his uncle's clothes. Pio starts worrying about Suyan and asks Sohee where she is. She says Suyan hasn't come home yet. Pio is crushed. Han sees her creepy neighbor following Suyan again and realizes he might be the one who killed Wan. Thinking quickly, she stands in the middle of the road, causing a traffic jam. In that crowd, the killer can't do anything and heads home. Back at the killer's house, Kim attacks him, but gets stabbed. Yoon arrives just as Pio is about to attack the killer. Yoon pretends to deliver a free pizza, and Pio jumps in and attack also shows up. He sees Kim wounded and beats the killer badly. Pio asks the killer if he killed Suyan. The killer says, "I don't know if she's dead or alive." Then Pio sees what looks like Suyan's dead body and completely loses it. He grabs a heavy weapon and smashes the killer's head in, killing him instantly. But then he realizes Suyan is still alive. It was all in his head. Kim is rushed to the hospital. So he grabs Don and demands to know where her daughter is. Just then, Han arrives with Suyan and everything's okay. Pio decides to leave the building forever. In the final scene, Kim now checks every customer's ID before selling them a bag. He tells his wife, "I still don't understand why that killer kept me alive for so long. He even slept next to me every night. He looked so scared." And it's true, the killer was haunted by Wan's ghost too. Every night at 10 p.m., she would leave his basement and walk home. And that's where this intense thriller ends.